Welcome to the Black Paper. My name is Sundukwe Onoha.
And I'm Chetawanze.
Cheta, we have an interesting episode, if I may say so, ahead. We want to talk. Yeah, I think so. We want to talk about the Home Office's message that visa applications have fallen by 100,000 in 2025. We want to talk about the UK police chief in the West Midlands police chief resigning because of AI.
That's your police chief.
No, I'm East Midlands. So he resigned because of AI, and then we want to talk about the new set of people leaving the Tories yet again for reform, and what it just means, if the reform are the new Tories. But before we start all that, Cheta, I don't think it will make sense to start without talking about one of the most exciting moments for our community, which was the just finished AFCON. How did you enjoy that absolutely chaotic final?
There's a God. Justice was served. End of story. See, the Moroccans had done a good job of hosting, but as time went on, it became clear that they were getting all the favorable calls, 50-50s, and we're not talking of just the final match. This is started from the knockout phases. So in order, they played Tanzania, they played Cameroon, they played Nigeria, and then they played Senegal in the final. And it became very clear that they were getting all the 50-50s. Anytime that there was something, so the Tanzanians complained, the Cameroonians complained, and then we complained. During the match with Nigeria, one very bad thing that they were doing was they kept nicking the towel. So keepers.
It was disgraceful.
It was embarrassing.
It's disgraceful.
So basically, keepers take those towels to clean their gloves, because the glove is like, for the keeper, the glove is like a boots. He needs it for the game. So they need those towels. And these people just kept making the towels disappear. Just a way of unsettling the keeper, so that they will just try to get undue advantage. So the Senegalese saw all of this and were prepared. So of course, by the time the final came around, then there was that very in short, I am actually very angry with our Ghanaian brothers, because the guy who refed the semi-final between Nigeria and Morocco is Ghanaian, and there were a lot of questionable calls. There was one call where we had a great chance, and then he blew and broke up the chance. And everybody and their mother was like, "But hang on, what's happening here?" Now, the reason I'm angry with the Ghanaians is that the guy got home to a hero's welcome in Ghana. There's a video of it. Like, this guy, there was a committee to welcome him, almost as if, let us get those Nigerians. In short, every Ghanaian deserves flogging for that thing. What kind of...
But we've said it. Nigeria is the one nation that almost everyone loves to hate on.
Well, now it's Morocco, because everybody, the Egyptians held street parties. The Algerians have been having orgasms. They are all very happy that Morocco lost that final.
No, but I think Morocco went into that being determined to be absolutely disgraceful. And I know that football, yes, it's football. It's supposed to celebrate us, but their behavior, especially in dragging, even when they were dragging the towel from the Senegalese.
I think I would pull rank on you, because I'm even surprised that you watched the match. You really don't watch football. See,
no, I don't.
In football, there's always gamesmanship. That's what we call it. So you expect the hosts to gain every advantage that they can. It's expected, but the Moroccans took it too far. So starting from when the Senegalese players arrived at the airport in Rabat, security was not there. So suddenly they were overwhelmed by a crowd, taking them to a hotel in the red light district. So that Ashara will be coming to knock on their door, so that they won't sleep. all sorts of little shenanigans. It reminds me of when we were playing Libya, Nigeria, and the Libyans. So we were supposed to play the match in Benghazi. The Libyans now went to drop the plane in an airport 3 hours by road away through a civil war zone. Like I said, the Super Eagles would have had to travel through a civil war zone in order to get to destination. Like how do you do that?
No, but you know, that also shows there's a lack of for lack of a better phrase, there's a lack of Nigeria pulling rank in some way as a supposed African power. Because and I'm coming, I do not believe the Libyans would have been able to do this to either the Egyptians or to a large extent the South Africans.
This shows that you don't watch football. The North Africans generally are very badly behaved when it comes to this. So what I'm saying is, admit that. Wait first,
look at the football. Yeah, no, that's not a problem. I'm not even arguing that. But look at the intersection of football and global politics. Which political power would they have been able to do this?
The North Africa. So get away with it is so the Libyans didn't get away with it when they did it to us. CAF and FIFA came down on them very heavy, and the match was awarded to Nigeria 0-3. So the Libyans also. The problem really is the fact that for the longest time, the African Football Confederation CAF has not been taking these things seriously. So because of that, people have been getting with it. So there's talk because the Senegalese walked out when that penalty was awarded, and it was a very soft penalty. I'm not saying that it was not a penalty, but it was an extremely soft penalty. The referee had what you call discretion. He could have let it go because the truth of the matter is that the two of them, it was 50-50. So think about it. A few minutes before, there was a 50-50 between a Moroccan player and a Senegalese player, and he awarded in favor of the Moroccan. A few minutes later, kick off the game, literally, there was practically a 50-50 between a Moroccan and he again awarded to the Moroccan. You know, that's what I'm talking about. But the point I'm making is that this is something that has been happening for decades, as in African football. And in North Africans are the past masters of it. The Egyptians are the worst. The Moroccans are basically learning where the Egyptians are.
Right. So away from football, where do you want to start with our 3 topics? Visa, falling, AI, or generic defecting?
Any of them is good. I mean, if we take any of them, because if we take the 2 of them together, there's actually a common thread. The UK is in a period of recalibration, and so there's a push for more border control. There's a crisis in institutional competence, which is showing up. Which they need people to help them show up their institutions. It's not an accident that, for example, a lot of the civil service subcontractors are going to Indian firms. That's not an accident. And then there's a political realignment. So I think that's where we should start. Robert Jenrick, our sister did well, did she not?
Yeah, well, she did in yes, because I think what she did by announcing. Oh no! See, look again. I've always said it, and I will say it. I'm never going to say my side gets everything right all the time, or the other side gets everything wrong all the time. It's because that's madness. However, for those who have not been following, a few days, I think this was on Friday.
It's just under a week ago. Was it Friday or Thursday?
I think it was Thursday. We woke up to a video, and you could tell that this was
hastily. Wake up late.
No, when I say you woke up, again, it's a figure of speech. A video that was hastily prepared by Kemi, who, for those who know the Conservative Party and their social media videos, you will know that they have slick videos, well prepared, and this is the leader of the party. So whenever she puts out a video, it's professionally put. But this was her sitting probably somewhere in her home, blood environment. So you could tell that this was done on the fly. This had to go out before the news hit everyone, and
They were
in
trying
it
to
she
they were
said,
trying to blindside Nigel Farage because he
"Yeah, yeah." But if I finish, so
yeah
in that video, what she said was, she's had incontrovertible evidence that Robert Jenrick was going to defect to reform, and do that in the most damaging way to not just his shadow front bench colleagues, but his party as well. So because of that, she had suspended him from the shadow cabinet, or removed him, maybe not
she had
suspended,
fired
removed
him
him
from
from
the
shadow
shadow
cabinet,
cabinet and
removed the
removed the
party whip
whip
from
from
him.
it.
So what she had done was fired him from the Conservative Party. And in so doing, what she then did was to, rather than turn the story from Nigel Farage has collected
Biko,
another.
don't be angry. I think you, as well, you as a British politician, can you explain what removing the whip means for
Oh,
as
right. Okay.
Nigerian audience? Because I once used that as well, and people thought that it was using koboko
Flogging.
to hit.
No, so
So
when you remove the whip from someone, what you're basically doing is you're expelling them from the party. So what she did was she expelled Robert Jenrick for planning to defect to reform, and to do so in a damaging manner.
and who
And
is
but
Robert Jenrick?
Robert Jenrick, that's a good question. Robert Jenrick was the shadow uh, Justice Secretary who ran against Kemi Badenoch, who is leader of the Conservatives, in a leadership election. But even though he lost to her, has since been sniping at her heels. And everyone knew that all he wanted, he was just beating his time for a comeback, because he always wanted to be a leader of the party. And
What is shadow? What is shadow government? Because
uh,
the time that we had shadow government in Nigeria, they've been taken to
uh,
court for treason.
Yeah, no, but that again, remember, talking to, we will have shadow government in place like South Africa, other countries that have the parliamentary system, and because it's not just Nigeria, but for those again who may not know, a shadow government is your position anyway. There's somebody who shadows the prime minister, who is the leader of the opposition, and then shadows all other ministers of state and their ministers under them, so that they can give alternative policy uh, policies to what the government of the day is doing. But anyway, Cheta, any other question? I'm sure you fill that in when you're talking. But what they did, what Kemi did by moving fast against Robert Jenrick, was to remove the sails from Farage's, the wind from Farage's sail, so that he doesn't come and say, "Oh, look, I've snatched yet another serious story," and the story then became the Reform Party is getting the Conservative reject, rather than the Reform Party has snatched this serious or senior figure from the Conservatives. So, Cheta, why on earth does this matter to us in any way, shape, or form?
Well, from my point of view, the key takeaway, the key thing is Robert Jenrick he was on the right of the Reform Party, so he's almost definitely good. There are people who will jump ship with him. So there's clearly a realignment happening to the right of British politics, and it's important for us to watch it because it's cut very deep into the entire immigration debates. When you have a case where if you remember, this is a minister who, when he was actually a minister, not a shadow minister, had this whole thing where he had the walls of his school painted because he didn't want immigrants' children to feel at home. So
he painted over the cartoon characters that were
yes,
on
he
the
painted over
walls in
cartoon
rooms where they
characters on
kept
the walls
children.
of his school where children were kept. He had it painted over. So
It's
that
disgusting.
there are two things that are going to come out of this for me. One, there will be consolidation, but number two, and I think this is the more important thing, there is only going to widen existing false lines within reform, because Jenrick himself is an ambitious person, very, very ambitious. He wants to be leader. So it's open for debate. And there was something very, very prescience that Kemi said. She said, generic is reform's problem now. He will prove to be a problem. I said he will prove to be a problem. But it's overall, it's less about one politician and more about the consolidation of power around stricter immigration views. It's clear that the people who want stricter immigration are moving in one direction. And the question that is open for that is up in the air for everybody to ask is, and this probably leads to the next story about the drop in visa applications. Will the government of the day keep pulling rights when it is clear that even with all their attempts to appease these guys, it is not working?
You know, the interesting thing, and it's interesting you say that. So I've just come from helping to push for the Labour candidate one in a by-election in Amber Valley, and it's interesting that on the right now, as it seems, of reform is a party called Advance, which was floated by Ben Habib, who was a former chairman of Reform, who in his own...
I always find it interesting when I see people like Ben Habib, because for Ben Habib has Asian origins. But please carry on.
Yeah, but in his own estimation, reformism hasn't even gone far enough, and now Advance is making, pardon the pun, but making advance on reform turf. But why that is interesting is because we've mentioned it. We now what Robert Jenrick is what, about 20 something now when it comes to former conservatives that have moved or that have moved to reform. In fact, over the weekend, the former shadow foreign minister Andrew Rosendale also moved to reform after Jenrick. But what you see happening is that reform has become there are memes and jokes going around the internet. They're now the clearinghouse for, as it seems, Tory rejects, the Tories being the Conservatives. But what's even more interesting is that although reform came out as the insurgent party, as it were, railing against the two-party system, suddenly they're seeing the Conservatives slowly take over. And now they are Tory 2.0. But even more than that, the point to Jenrick being reform's problem now is that now he's actually Nigel Farage's problem, because Nigel Farage is famous for not broking any opposition or wanting someone else to shine like him, which is within the party, which is why Ben Habib left, because they couldn't get along, which is why Richard Lowe left, because they couldn't get along. Richard Tice was chairman, then and he was rising in the polls, and Farage said,
Zia Yusuf.
This guy, so he comes back, takes over from Tice, relegates him to the background. Zia Yusuf comes, he's doing the rounds, he's shining. Farage says, hang on, it's not going to work. And so Zia Yusuf left but didn't quite leave. So he's no longer chairman, but he's now head of policy. But when you then have an ego like Robert Jenrick come here, who's been making social media videos for the longest, you have a good media performer in Jenrick, you have a good media performer in what's his name, Farage. Question is how very soon they're going to go head to head. But if you look at Jenrick, the problem I see, so for reform, the problem for them is they are now Conservative Party 2.0. So it's not even reform taking over the Conservatives, it's the Conservatives taking over reform. However, what you will see, and Jenrick has shown that he has a capacity to look out for Jenrick's best interest, and everyone be damned. Because he came into the party as a Cameron centrist conservative. So David Cameron, former PM. But then, so everyone saw this guy and thought, well, he's not as mad as the rest. But as he kept looking out for his own self-interest, he suddenly realized that I can go from, and if you believe the stories, he cried when he was told that he have to get tough on immigration because he just thought this is madness. But then suddenly realized that this can advance me. So suddenly went from the centuries crying generic who thought we can't be hard on migrants to the guy who thinks everything is wrong with migrants. I didn't see a white face in Birmingham. And now has gone from that to reform, where in order to advance his own interests and in order to grow in favor with the hard right members of reform, would have to go even tougher on his stance on immigration. So it's going to be a case of who is the tougher reformer, Robert Jenrick or Nigel Farage. And then I believe you're going to start seeing even more crazy rhetoric come out from the Reform Party. We might just see a rise of remigration debate, but I don't know what you think about that.
Well, I think that my own thinking is that they will descend into civil war. They would ultimately fall over all over themselves, especially I think what will actually bring the break is, so it's not going to be as vulgar as it tends to be in our neck of the woods, but there'll be a fight for American money. The American right wing is clearly trying to finance a lot of these guys, and there's going to be there's going to be that fight to be the beautiful eyes in the bride in the eyes of the Americans. That, I think, will be the key breaking point. But I think that reform will do rather well in the elections in May. And it is that exposure to power that will finally show everybody who has sense between his ears that reform has not much to offer. Like I keep saying, reform has peaked. They've essentially attracted all the crazies. So the people who are left for them to try to attract are those who are moderates. It's not going to happen. I think ultimately, I think that the big winner from all of this will be the Lib Dems. That I still stand on that.
That's actually quite interesting. That'll be good to see, or rather interesting to see. And okay, well, I mean, we'll be here to see it. But you're right. Reform seems to have peaked because for 2 weeks now they've remained
I've been saying it for
constant.
months
now. No, yeah, but they've remained constant in the polls at I believe 24%.
They are actually there was a point where they hit 29%, but their natural level, in my view, is somewhere between so it's not going to be a static number. I think their peak popularity is somewhere will always oscillate between 24 and 27, 28. That's my view.
Well, let's see what happens, and it'll be nice to see, or interesting to see, how well they do in Amber Valley, because there was no, I don't remember the place. There was a by-election, I think, last week where, interestingly, Labour held that seat, despite all the talk of reform and all that. So we're seeing people suddenly pulling back and asking themselves, hang on, is this what reform has to offer, or doesn't even offer at all? When you look at even in councils where they're suddenly trying to deprive children of support, children with special needs, of transport to their schools, and suddenly you're like, oh, this is a bit funny. We're going to have to see what happens with regards to that. And I think this sort of like nicely, if we're talking about migration and all that, sort of like is a good point to segue into the Home Office figures, saying that claiming that year on year the visa applications in 2025 had fallen by 100,000. Now, if you look at Home Office figures, the total applications in 2025 were about 737,100, down from 840,000 in 2024. So if you want to be really anal about it, that's 102,900 difference. Yes, there's that sharp fall, if you might put it that way, of the numbers falling. But the question for me is, on one hand, yes, the government can say, look, we've achieved this, the drop in number of visa applications. But on the other hand, the question is, how does that affect the public services? Because when you look at the number of people who these visa applications will affect and the sectors in which they will affect, which will be mostly health, the care sector, and education, is politics getting in the way of common sense?
Yes, politics is getting in the way of common sense. There's what you've just talked about basically I think it's a simple way of looking at it is the official narrative versus the lived reality. So the Home Office is framing it as framing the drop as a policy success. I was about to say politics as a policy success, which is a political success. The jury is out on that, and from their point of view, it's a win for British workers. However, for many experts, especially those who came through legal and it must be said, expensive and very tough routes. This kind of celebration can feel dismissive of our contributions to the country. Hostile comments by Brits actually hits. They hit very hard because they amplify that sense that whether it is legal or illegal migration, they are often conflicted. I think the best example is the poll that I referenced 2 weeks ago, the More Common poll, which showed that despite the fact that immigration is coming down, 67% of respondents think that is the highest it's ever been. There's a clear disconnect. Now, the numbers dropped not because people stopped wanting to come to the UK. The problems that a lot of us from African countries have back home still exist, and of course even for people from the Middle East, for Asians, but the rules have made it impossible. So when you think of the ban on bringing dependents for university students, for care workers, many people who came to work in the NHS doing jobs that it must be said British people often refuse to do, it's basically a slap in the face. I mean, look at the scandal around the prisons visa thing. So it's basically a slap in the face because what the government is essentially saying is, we want your labor, but we don't want your life. And how does that work? I mean, there's a reason why Japan's immigration system, Japan opening up their immigration system has not been a success, because you want people to come, but you don't want them to come with their families. How does that work? It really doesn't.
It's saying naked, it's like a naked confession of we don't give
It's transactional and it's cold. And one thing that people who move, human beings want to feel welcome. It's just that simple. I mean, for me personally, I always laugh at the irony of certain people who shout about how the UK is being overrun by foreigners and then up sticks and go to Dubai
or Spain and then tell the Spanish to speak English. But anyway, I'll tell you what we should be doing now. We should take a break. Let's up and take a break, and when we're back, flesh out this topic and the conversation around the West Midlands police and AI. What do you think, Cheta?
No wahala.
Welcome back to the Black Paper. My name is Ndukwe Onoha.
I'm Cheta Wanze.
So, Cheta, before the break, we started on the conversation around the numbers of visa applications falling by 102,900 if you're going by the Home Office figures,
But
which
just stick with 100K, I beg.
which the government would like to tout as you said, a policy win, politics win. But when you look at the real life impact of this, the question is, who's actually winning. So I was looking at, and we've mentioned this in the podcast about the growing aging population of the UK, which is matched by the low birth rate, and by 2039, it's estimated that 1 in 4 people in the UK will be over 65, which is about 23.9% of the UK population. As at 2019, that was 18.5% of the population. But by 2039, 23, almost 24% of the UK population will be over 65, which means that population will definitely need care. Now, in a situation
Which would
where
almost include us by that time.
wait, yeah, look, man, let's not talk about. Look, dude,
Why are you
no.
afraid of your mortality?
Look, no, I'm still a young, but anyway, but in a situation where it doesn't seem that there's much going on in terms of training people to go into the care sector, or even enticing them to go into the care sector.
That's a key thing.
The question is, are we at some point going to see a similar decision with the prisoners, where one day you're told to pack and leave, and the next day you suddenly realize, hang on, we don't have enough people to take care of this 24% of the UK population who will need help or need care?
So in my view, it's almost definitely going to happen. So I think you want to go back to first principles. So the UK welfare state is in many respects a child of the Belvedere reports from I think 1942. And at the time, the average life expectancy in the UK was just over 60. So it made sense to peg retirement age at 65 for a very generous pension system, and France, for example, has a similar problem. Germany has a similar problem. Italy has a similar problem. European countries, especially in Western Europe, have this problem. So the welfare state was designed at a time when life expectancy was not as it is now. Now, all of them have life expectancies in the 80s, so which means that many people retire and then they have 20 years where they I don't want to use the word become a burden, but that's the way many politicians, especially on the right wing, put it. It's not. These are people who have contributed to society, so society has a duty to take care of them. But the problem is society, because life expectancy has grown, the number of people, and I forget the numbers. As of the time that the current UK welfare state was designed, there were 8 workers, I think, for one pensioner. Now it's closer to it's closer to 5 for 1 or 4 for 1. So which means in an 80-year span, it has halved. More people are carrying the burden of caring for pensioners. And the UK, like every self-respecting European country nowadays, is not at replacement fertility ratio, which means that fewer children are being born. There's a statistic that I've always loved to quote for demographic reports, which we do, which is that more babies, and this has been true since at least 2014. Every year, more babies are born in Nigeria alone than in the entirety of Europe, if you don't include Russia.
You Nigerians have been keeping busy.
Well, we are busy. We are busy. We are busy. We are poor. So for many Nigerians, especially the lower end of society, it's not an accident that the higher birth rates in Nigeria are in the poorer areas of Nigeria. Because many of these people, they don't have, the only form of recreation that they have is to come home and fall on their wives, and they can't afford condoms. So let's not go into that conversation.
Well, so not just can't afford, but for a lot of people, for various reasons, will not use, because I know that uh, the government for a long while tried to give out free
You are
condoms.
trying to drag us into a conversation that will not finish.
Okay, you know what? So let's stay on track. Stay on track, Cheta. Don't get distracted.
Yeah. So basically, so what is happening is that the UK's welfare state needs people. It's that simple. In order for, because the welfare state, okay, not just the UK, the welfare states in various countries in Europe needs people. But A, they're not producing enough people. B, even when they're producing people, doing the work, it's no longer, it's the people have been wealthy for a long time, so they can't accept to do certain kinds of jobs.
I mean, I still go back to two people who either didn't think about it clearly when they said it, or said it because what the hell, and it didn't age well. One was Kemi Bejinok saying Nigerians just come here to clean bombs. Now, the thing is, when it comes to political discourse, there are things that you know to be true. However, sometimes political wisdom says don't let your intrusive thoughts win. So A
Not
was
just
Kemi
political
Bejinok.
discourse, not just political
In life
discourse, any
generally.
discourse. Yeah.
Yeah. So she said that, and then Zach Polanski, who was
I
was
remember the
doing
Zach
so well.
Polanski one.
Yeah, and when he said it, it was like there was just a screeching.
It was clear that his brain engaged shortly after he said it.
Yeah, because like, well, I don't know about you. I don't want to clean bombs. I'm like, whoa, my man. So you know, I'm like, on one hand, you know, you're supposed to be the guy. You've made yourself to be the guy
the man of the people.
Yeah, the man of the people, the man who says migrants is good, but then you just say blatantly, you know, this guy is almost like, yeah, you know, get them here to clean bombs because I don't want to clean anyone's bomb. And suddenly,
but that is the prevailing attitude.
Yeah, it is. But suddenly you realize that when you remove all the shiny words, all the nice videos and everything, the relationship between migrants and the UK is that of a deeply transactional one, where no matter what anyone says to you, people look at us and say, well, we need people to clean bombs. Let them come. Yes. And when we think that they are coming with their families or they're just doing enough, we'll go back. When we have more bombs that need cleaning, we'll let you know.
Bring them back.
You know,
now,
so it's deeply disturbing.
Yeah. To be fair to the Brits, it's the relationship between settled populations who live a better life and people who want to come and get their own share of that national cake. So think of back home. Those of us from southern Nigeria, in our heads, our northern brethren are only good to come and be megguards or house helps.
And that is very, very, very true. And look, I have to thank you for bringing that up, because there's a friend of mine, Donna Ogunaike, who I remember when we were having a conversation around just the issues of part of the problems of settling in here. It was at a panel discussion, and someone brought up the conversation around racism. Donna, I must say, was quite quick to say, hang on, yes, you're talking about, you know, racism here, which is a problem, definitely. However, how do you act to your fellow Nigerians back home? You know, have you taken away some of that bigotry that is there, or the ethnicity? So yes, you're right, because there are certain people. I grew up in Aba, so growing up in Aba, you knew that there were people, there were only certain jobs, in quotes, that you had people from, say, Akwa Ibom or some of those other states. And it was so, I mean, thinking about it now, it was stereotyping at its worst. And whether we like him or hate him, Dave Umahi, when he was governor of Ebonyi, actually did quite a lot. No, hang on. That's why I said whether you like him or hate him, but two things can be right at the same time. What he did
I don't
was
like
to
him, so please stop giving us a
yeah.
stop using
So
as a
I'm
good
not.
example.
No. Hang on, but let me finish. What Dave did during his time was to try and show that there was an
I'm just trying to be
alternative.
civilized here.
Yes. That's why. Look,
What,
he's like his Marmite,
see,
but he showed.
why don't you use Victor Atta?
Wait, I'm coming. But he
Victor
showed.
Atta's first statement as
Cheta,
governor of
Cheta,
Akwa Ibom was
let me
that
let me
Akwa
finish
Ibom
now, Cheta.
children will never be called house helps again.
Cheta,
And he did it.
Cheta, let me
Don't use
no,
Umahi.
Cheta, let me finish.
Make way.
Cheta, let me finish. Again, we don't need to like people to say whether they did well or not. I am the last person to say Dave Umahi did well as a human being. However, give him his kudos. Ebonyi people started seeing themselves in a different light. It's the same you can say about distasteful characters like
I don't want to give him his kudos.
the Senate. Yeah, that's okay, Cheta. Is the same
Okay,
thing you can say about
Mussolini made the
distasteful.
trench run on time.
Cheta, it's the same you can say about distasteful characters like the current Senate president. What's his name again? Godswill
He
Akpabio.
simply yes. So Victor Atta, whom I mentioned,
yeah,
laid the foundation, and Akpabio continued.
And it is what I'm saying, Cheta. You don't have to like these guys to say that there was an impact.
But I'm saying that you should not mention them.
No, but you can't say that. Otherwise, I would say
your better examples. I give you one. Do you want me to give you another one?
Cheta.
You want me to give you a third one? Ambrose Ali.
Cheta, it doesn't matter. Again, we are not here to push our personal opinion on these human beings.
I am not pushing my personal opinion. I am saying that you can give that. As in, Nigeria is awash with examples of
I am giving
people who did good stuff and still have good character.
Cheta, hang on. The context for this is I am from Abia State. And I know.
So you're not from Ebonyi State.
No, Cheta.
In short.
Again, Cheta, if you let me finish, for goodness sake, please let me finish. Thank you.
What made this man?
No, hang on. I'm from Abia State. Growing up, I knew the positions that people from what you could now call Ebonyi State were held in. I don't need to care about the governor that changed the fortunes. What I'm saying is people started seeing themselves as more than just house helps and more than just security men. During the time of this guy, forget about whether you like his policies or not. You can say two things. You can walk and chew gum. Two things can be right at the same time. He can be a terrible person as a governor.
Policies.
Yes.
I will grudgingly admit that his policies were decent. It's his politics I'm talking about.
I don't care about his politics.
Wait,
I don't.
I've let you talk. Can I now speak?
Yeah.
Now, you are from Abia. Geographically, Abia shares boundaries with both Ebonyi and Akwa Ibom. Ebonyi and Akwa Ibom had the same problem. And they both had visionary leaders at one point. And I detest that I'm using the word visionary and Umahi in the same sentence. But they both had visionary leaders who said, my people will not be talked about derogatorily again. I would use Victor Atta as the example 7 times a week and twice on Sunday. Because Victor Atta is a better human being. End of story. And that's the point I'm making.
Yeah, Cheta, I don't argue.
You want to make a point. It's a valid point.
Cheta,
wait.
I made a case about.
You want to make a point. It's a very valid point. But use a better person. Because
Cheta,
I don't want to. We keep falling into the trap of saying, oh, okay, and this is something we do in Nigeria all the time. We keep falling into the trap of saying, okay, he's a bad man, but he did this.
I have not said that. I said Ebonyi. You see, again, I think this is the part where you have your fixation about something and you don't look at the context. I was talking about people from Ebonyi State. Ebonyi State is not Akwa Ibom State. So talking about Akwa Ibom, I can say Victor Atta, but Ebonyi State is different.
Ebonyi is not Akwa Ibom, granted. But in most of these arguments, what usually happens is someone says something, people try to shut him down, and they don't present a counter. I am presenting you with a counter. It is exactly the same situation. And the perception of Ebonyi people pre-Umahi was the same perception of Akwa Ibom people pre-Victor Atta. They did the same thing. Victor Atta is still alive, did his 8 years, did not try to interfere with the politics after himself. He's a good moral example. So I am giving you an alternative to use in your analogy.
Cheta,
but you are the one that is insisting on putting somebody who is currently, as we speak, overblowing budgets, constructing a coastal road to nowhere, and telling journalists to shut up.
Cheta,
I mean, we should pick a better example. That's my argument.
Cheta, I have not defended.
We're moving away from.
But Cheta,
in the show notes, tell Madam Producer, in the show notes, put this as a vote. Let us see what our listeners will say.
No, see again, Cheta, don't talk and try to shut it down.
Trying to shut it down. I'm just pointing out quite reasonably that we have deviated from talking about the UK to arguing about Nigerian politicians.
Because Cheta, again, at the pain of repeating myself, I started by saying
you're actually sounding like a scratch CD.
No, I started by saying there are different people who at some point in their existence, the only jobs that they could do or they were seen to be that was decent enough for them to do by their neighbors, being people from like Abia State, for instance, was either being house helps or being security guards. Those people, people from Akwa Ibom State, people from Ebonyi State. Now, it is not my business to defend any governor because yes, they're horrible people, but it is not my fault or anybody's fault that during their time in office, there was a change in the psychological, in how people saw themselves. So forget about whether they are kleptomaniac. That is not the discourse about how people saw themselves. Now, you have a problem definitely with Dave Umahi. Any sane person has a problem with Dave Umahi. Any sane person does. You understand? However, in the context of Ebonyi people seeing themselves as more than just house helps, that happened during his tenure. So as
nobody
I said, two things.
That.
Yeah, but all you're saying is don't talk about him.
So I took the argument further.
No,
don't talk about him. What you've said, here is an example, because in most of these arguments, it is don't talk about him. Period. No, I gave you. See, but this is also how history gets rewritten. We may not like some facts. Trying to rewrite history here. I am just saying that, given his current role in making you a refugee, don't try to whitewash him.
Again, Cheta, anyway, I think what you're doing is this. No, it's not in a way. What you're doing is a strawman argument to say the sky is blue, therefore footballs are black. No, I've not tried to whitewash Umahi. I have said here that any sane person will not like his politics. What I have also said is that during his tenure, Cheta, wait, hang on. No, Cheta, you don't get to tell me which example to use. I
have given you an analogy. Benito Mussolini makes the trains run on time. Why is it that nobody uses him as an example of an efficient government?
Cheta, hang on. Again, what you're doing is a straw man argument where you are linking two things that are not. I have not said that because
I'm not linking
Umahi made people think better. No, okay, Cheta. So please let me finish. I have not. What you have said is that because we don't like his politics, we cannot also say that he made people think differently about themselves. And those are two different things.
You are hearing things in your head.
No, because you're saying talk about this person, don't talk about him.
I have not said that he did not achieve so and so. I never said that.
But you're saying you don't. But you don't.
Said use a better example because of what he has gone on to do.
And so,
and I told you why. because it is something that has been recurring in our history. We will say, oh, okay, El-Rufai built certain roads in Kaduna. Oh, but while he was governor, Southern Kaduna came under attack. But he built certain roads.
No, but you are misrepresenting what I've said, Cheta.
No, I am not
because I have not. Hang on, because I did not say.
I am extending.
I did not say Dave Umahi did so.
Me. When you spoke and you said I should let you speak.
But if you try not to misrepresent me,
I am not misrepresenting you into Kwe Onoha. I am saying there are two governors, and I still give orders. Ambrose Ali, Akbarapu. There are governors who achieved something similar to what Umahi achieved, and who everybody agrees were morally not necessarily unimpeachable. There's no human being that is unimpeachable, but within the context of Nigerian politics are unimpeachable. So if we want to give examples to our children of someone to emulate, please use them. Because the problem, a fundamental problem,
this is such a dangerous stretch.
No, it's not a ridiculous stretch. It is not. A fundamental problem with Nigerian politics is we keep giving bad examples for people to look up to.
Okay.
So moral examples.
Cheta, this is such a ridiculous stretch because, again, remove your personal feelings. And I've removed my personal feelings about Umahi.
Not my personal feelings. This is what everybody agrees.
Hang on.
Clearly, we have agreed to disagree.
Hang on.
See,
Cheta, can
no, can I? Because you've made this same point 4 times.
No, Cheta. No, so, again, what you're trying.
But breathe,
Cheta,
breathe.
Cheta, let me.
You have made the point. What is happening now is that you are determined to have the last word.
I'm not determined to have
the last word.
Cheta, if you will let me talk.
You've made the points. There's no points. You've made the point so many times.
Don't tell me what. No, Cheta, please don't tell me what the point is. Let me talk.
No,
please.
we're arguing like we're in a Nigerian beer parlour.
Yeah, but if you will let me. No, Cheta, if you would let me talk, don't tell me what the point is. Because we started talking about people and how they see themselves. And I spoke about a point in time, because what we will also not do, what we should also not do, Cheta, is to remove a people's progression because we don't like the person who was a governor. Wait, Cheta, let me finish, please. Let me finish. We should not remove a people's progression because we do not like the person who was a governor and we still do not like him. I've said it, 2 things can be right at the same time. It can be right that Dave Umahi is a silly politician, and no one argues about that. But when I said growing up, this is what we talked about Ebonyi people, and during this man's tenure, he said they have to change. We can say yes, he said that, but he also was because he was a terrible administrator as a governor. We can say all of that. However, when you then try to shut it down and say, oh, don't talk about him or don't talk about that because it means you're whitewashing him, it's such a ridiculous stretch. I don't have said I'm trying to whitewash Dave Umahi. I'm saying that Ebonyi people growing up, I knew them as house helps. During this tenure, he managed to say to them, think differently about who you are. Whatever else he did with government resources and he's managing to do can still be true, but it cannot be disputed that people started changing their thoughts about their place as human beings in terms of servitude in the wider Nigerian space. And that, we can agree on that.
Okay. Have you finished? Have you finished, yes or no? Have you finished?
If you have something to say, don't be bloody ridiculous. If you have something to say,
interrupting me.
No, it's not that. If you want to say, you have something to say, don't be bloody ridiculous. Just go ahead.
I have not at any point in time disagreed with all of what you said. I have simply put a caveat that there are better examples we can use, because repeatedly in Nigeria, we use these extremely flawed examples and thus end up giving people something very flawed to aspire to. And I used an analogy. When Benito Mussolini took over in Italy, Italy was a mess. And they said it was actually, I think it was Kim Philby, no, not Kim, but there was somebody, a British journalist who came to Italy, visited Italy at the time, and they said he made the trains run on time. Essentially, in very quick time, Mussolini sorted out Italy. But fast forward 100 years, we're 104 years from when Mussolini took over. Nobody uses Mussolini as an example of good government because of what he did. So, in Umahi's case, Umahi did good in terms of helping the people of Ebonyi have a better perception of themselves. I have not denied that at any point in this conversation. What I'm talking about is there are other people, individuals who were governors in Nigeria that achieved pretty much the same thing. And these other people are better examples for us to point to because of what they did after their tenure. What is Umahi involved in the current government? He's involved in contract inflation. He's involved in play politics back home. He's doing the same kind of thing or something similar with what Wike is doing in Rivers. Wike is building roads in Abuja. Are we going to point to Wike as a good person that we should give as an example?
I have not pointed to them as a good person.
I did not interrupt you. Having said all of this,
you tried medicine, but just carry on.
Having said all of this, we have gone so far from what we're supposed to be talking about that we are almost out of time. But, Madam Producer, this is a passionate appeal. Do not cut this out. Let us leave a poll at the bottom of the clinical so that our viewers will have their say. And then next episode, we shall read viewer comments. Who is the better example to point my children and your children to say he did right by his people?
No,
is it Victor Atta or David Umahi? It is not a stretch. No. It is not a stretch. Again,
context matters.
The context is this.
Cheta, it's not who is a better example to your children. It's not who is better example to your children. It is in the context of changing people's mindset about what they can be in terms of jobs they can get.
Examples
under whose leadership did this change? That is the context. I'm not saying this person is a good person overall and this person is bad.
Before Victor Atta became governor of Akwa Ibom.
That was Akwa Ibom. Okay, so who else?
So are you trying to write off the Akwa Ibom?
No, you are making such, as in I can't even believe, Cheta, the extent to which you try to make these arguments. We said there are two states, Akwa Ibom, Victor Atta. Yes, no one's arguing.
The same problem.
Ebonyi, Ebonyi, Dave Umahi, whether he's politics, I'm again in the context of getting people to rethink their life, their career choices.
Precisely,
that is what we're talking about. Not about who is a better.
It is precisely the same thing.
It is precisely the same thing.
Atta did.
And I agree. Put it in that context, Cheta. Don't talk about who is a better example to your children, because that is so hilarious that you're even trying to go to that.
It's hilarious. It is. I never attempted comedy. So
but
putting me in the same bucket as basket mouth and Chris Rock.
You're making a strawman argument. It is quite ridiculous that you are.
Strawman argument.
The argument here,
I would actually go so far as to say that, because what you are doing is ad hominem. It is a very simple point I'm making, and I have been standing on this point, which is
I've not said you want to, or whoever is a good example to your children.
I'm saying when you want to give an example, see. One of the reasons we have all run away from our country is bad politicians. So why should we be holding bad politicians and talking about the goods that they did?
Again, what you have repeatedly failed or refused to see is that we talked about how people change their perception of their career choices. And I did start by saying sadly it's under this guy, but under this person they change their perception.
You didn't
How
say
is
sadly
that?
before. You didn't say sadly
Okay,
before you started. Or it
yeah,
was
yeah,
like
no,
until
no,
I,
but
it was like
no,
kicked against
hang on.
it.
No, hang on, but how is that then whitewashing someone to say that when this guy was governor, he made people say, look, I can be more than a house help? Because you see, the thing with facts is that it doesn't bend.
They're stubborn.
And it doesn't bend
again,
to your personal
I never disputed the fact that he
somebody.
did this. I never disputed the fact that he did this.
So why can't we say that
point
under this person it happened?
So there's an example that someone gave. Let's go back to the football that we used to start this. There's an example that someone gave when people were talking about what Morocco did during the Nations Cup. The person pointed out that in 2004, when Tunisia won the Nations Cup, and it is the only Nations Cup Tunisia has won. I remember that in that discussion, when we're talking about it, we said the North Africans take gamesmanship to the extreme. Tunisia did a lot of the same thing that Morocco did. The difference is it worked for them. They won the Nations Cup. Cameroon complained bitterly. Now, 22 years later, the record just states Tunisia won the Nations Cup. So look at it this way. Someone who has zero idea of Nigerian politics listens to you, and the example that you choose to pick about a governor who changed the perception of his people is Dave Umahi. That person is going to come away thinking that Dave Umahi is a great guy. And that's what we have. Njukwe, can we draw the line?
No, hang on, because what I also want to say
draw the line.
Do you erase a whole people because we don't like someone that was a governor during a certain time? Because what Ebonyi people have achieved for themselves. No, hang on, because in saying we're not going to talk about this, it is saying we're not going to talk about the turning point in the history of our people who were at a point.
You are obsessed with thinking that I'm trying to erase Ebonyi people. I'm not. Not at any point.
So what?
Not at any point.
Cheta, I think what you can say.
See, when Madame uploads this thing, go back and listen to the argument from the start. I haven't argued. It's only one point I have stood by, which is you are using a bad example, and in your head you've decided. By refusing to use, let me go back to the analogy I've drawn 4 times since we started. Mussolini. By refusing to, by not pointing to Mussolini as an example of a good leader, did we erase Italians? Did we erase Italians?
No, because again, remember.
No, answer the question. Did we erase Italians? Why you are not answering the question?
No, because you want a yes or no answer, and if you let me answer the question, Cheta, stop doing this thing. The context matters. That's what I've been going back to. The context is this: people seeing themselves as more than just servants, and it happened because a governor who, yes, we do not like for his politics, change how people see themselves. Now, that context is what I am saying. You cannot then say, forget that context and just say this person was a bad man. He's a bad man. Yes, but do not also then say, because the incredible movement of within a period of 8 years, really, of Ebonyi people seeing themselves as more than just servants needs to be acknowledged. Who was the governor? That bad man. Yes. And so 2 things, I have repeatedly said, 2 things can be true at the same time. That Dave Umahi is a terrible person, but that Dave Umahi was a governor who also made people see themselves as more than servants. Those are 2 things that we can say can be true at the same time. And if there's an Akwa Ibom, of course, Victor Atta, we can also say, yes, he was a good man who, if you want to argue, how much did he do in Akwa Ibom State apart from letting people see themselves as more than just servants? Those arguments you can even get into. However, in the context, which is what I'm always saying, in the context of people seeing themselves as more than servants, under whose tenures did this happen? and that
Okay,
is it.
so let's just go straight to government's law now. Since we're on this, since we've completely sidetracked, so let's just go straight to government's law. 2. Price of a loaf of bread in Germany was 1,000,000 marks. Germans were utterly defeated and saw themselves in a very bad light. And then they turned to a chap called Adolf Hitler and elected him to power. And within 5 years, French soldiers were basically taking over countries, their neighbors. Germany was full of national pride. They had started constructing the Autobahn. They had started doing all that good stuff. This was before 2 years later he unleashed a war on Europe. Does anybody talk about the fact that, oh, this man tamed inflation, gave employment to people, all of that? Because the context of his other actions matter. And that is my point. I know, but if you refuse to mention the quote unquote good that Hitler did, it does not mean you are erasing Germans. Same way, if you refuse to mention the quote unquote good that Mussolini did, it does not mean you are erasing Italians. So I find it funny that you are saying I'm trying to erase Ebonyi people by mentioning that is what you said. I let you speak.
I'll go back to why I said that.
I find it funny that you say I'm trying to mention to erase Ebonyi people by saying that there are better examples of people who achieve precisely the same thing. I gave you 3. Gave you 3.
Now,
but you choose to focus on that it is just this one that must be the example you must run
I did not say no.
Despite the fact that this particular individual is, as we speak, letting all sorts of malfeasance happen. And that is my problem.
Okay, good. Now, what you've done is manufacture some argument in your head and then say, I did it. And I'll tell you which argument you've manufactured. Saying that I'm insisting that this man must be the same. No, that has not happened. What we were talking about, remember the context in which this argument started was people seeing themselves. We started with cleaning bomb comments. And we said, there's a thing about people seeing themselves as more than just a certain thing. And I said, in Nigeria, growing up, Akwa Ibom people were seeing...
It's interesting that I am the point of reason here. Because we have blown past our time.
Yeah, Cheta.
We have diverted away from our topic.
Yeah, but you do these things where you I will remind
you of this.
No, Cheta, you do this thing where
continue. I've told you to continue.
No, hang on, Cheta. You do this thing where you wait until I start talking, and then you start talking and don't want to stop, trying to get me off. So I'll go back to where it started. I said that growing up in Aba, we knew that Akwa Ibom people were either house help or gatemen, and that changed. And then Ebonyi people as well. And I said that changed, and it changed under Dave Umahi. I used them as a point in time, as markers in time to say this is when this changed. I have never defended Dave Umahi's politics or him as a politician or as a person. I've used his administration as a marker in time. With Victor Atta, I mean, you mentioned Victor Atta. In fact, I was going to mention Akpabio because I actually forgot this started before Victor Atta. So that's why I was saying, oh, this Senate president.
No, Akpabio was after Victor Atta.
I know. That's what I'm saying. So I use them as markers in time, not to say these people are good people, but to say this is when this thing started changing. And if we would not have gone over 20 minutes or whatever arguing about someone's politics. Yes, because all I did was to use somebody as a marker in time. I'll give you another example.
All I did was to say that he's not a good example. And you insisted.
No, I not insist he's a good example. I insisted that this happened during his time. So try to boil down that statement of fact that this happened between whatever year.
To erase the
yes, because by no,
said. You accused me of being a mass murderer.
Yeah, no, I accuse you of making a straw man. I accuse you of making ridiculous arguments.
You accuse me of
Yes,
genocide.
because you've
Your
been making
exact
ridiculous
words,
straw man arguments.
your exact words was that I tries to erase a Bonny people.
Yes,
Those were your exact words.
Yes, because you've been making
I can actually take you to the
ridiculous
ICC for
arguments.
this thing. It's not
Which
ridiculous. You keep throwing ridiculous, as if throwing it up and down will make it stick. It doesn't.
It's ridiculous because again, as I've said, trying to create
we are still doing this Nigerian beer parlour thing.
Yes, because trying to put something in time, Cheta,
in the Nigerian beer
to
parlour,
give a context, and then you say
for our listeners who are non-Nigerians who have managed to stay till this, because I can expect that our Nigerian listeners will enjoy this. The non-Nigerian listeners will probably be wondering what is wrong with these
with these people.
For those of you who are non-Nigerians, these kind of arguments never end. In short, in the Nigerian beer parlour, people think that it's the person who shouts loudest that has won the argument. So what happens is everybody starts raising their voices until their voices finally crack. Anyway, let us be reasonable men and stop.
Okay. So AI,
we have blown past our bedtime completely. So let us talk. I think the AI
might be the most interesting.
I think the AI
episode.
thing is important to talk about, but we don't have much time.
Maybe in a different on a different episode we can talk about.
We can talk about it at length. Yeah, but it's so basically a background is there was a match in November in the UEFA Europa League. It would have been Aston Villa versus Maccabi Tel Aviv. Before the match, so we're back to football, that thing that Ndukwe doesn't really like.
No, not I don't like. No, anyway, Ndukwe doesn't really care for.
Your hackles are still up.
Huh?
Your hackles are still up. We're not talking about Umahi now, so you can count that.
Oh, no, I said, no, but I don't not like football. I just, it's there. This is that episode where Teta is trying to use me to try his political
as a football
non-facts.
As a football fan, I can tell you that there are two kinds of people. Those who like football and those who don't like football. There's no in between.
No, there are those who really don't.
I said as
who
a
don't care
fan.
for football.
So which means you don't like football.
No, it means I
ask any football fan. It means that you don't like football. Just ask any football fan. It's not me that's saying it. So
no wonder now I understand. So it's the football fan in you that makes you live in your own alternate universe.
See, you will not derail me. I was talking about Maccabi Tel Aviv and Aston Villa. Anyway, before the match, a couple of weeks before the match, Maccabi Tel Aviv fans were banned from coming by the West Midlands police. Now, Maccabi Tel Aviv fans have a history of hooliganism and racism. And that fed into what's the reasons, because it was in the context, Birmingham, which is where Aston Villa is located, has a very large Muslim population. So the police were afraid that there will be clashes. Bear in mind that a year before, fans of the same Maccabi Tel Aviv had been involved in a football match with Ajax Amsterdam in Amsterdam, and there were clashes. So the whole thing, there was that racial tension. Unfortunately, part of the reasoning, the report that the West Midlands police gave included a match specifically that was invented by AI. And on the strength of that, a lot of politicians have come out, and eventually the police chief of the West Midlands Police has fallen on his sword. He's retired. He essentially was given the easy way out. The Home Secretary wanted to sack him outright, but she doesn't have the power to.
Only the Police and Crime Commissioner does.
Yeah. So those ones simply advised him to retire. So if he had been sacked, he would have lost his pension and everything. But because he retired, he gets his pension and all of that. And the police commission advised him to retire because of the political heat, nothing more. So we're not going to dwell on all of that. What we want to talk about really is that AI thing. Because AI, and the reason, so we would have dwelt on the other bits because that's the one that really affects our community. But AI also affects us. So let's just talk about that briefly because we've overrun our time anyway. So AI is here to stay. I think that people need to be realistic about that. It's giving a pep talk that I give in my office. The thing is, AI is like a tool. You need to actually know what you are doing in order to use AI effectively. That's where the problem comes. Most people, I have seen reports written by people that immediately you can tell that it's AI that's hallucinating.
Written, yeah.
Because one problem that a lot of
sorry, Cheta, can you explain that hallucination? Because
that's
to
what I was
you,
trying to. Yeah. One problem that a lot of AI agents have is they don't know how to admit that they couldn't find a result. So instead of not finding a result, they would go ahead and invent stuff to fill in the blank spaces, which is likely what happens in this case. I can imagine that the prompts that the AI was given was, hey, give me a list of matches that Maccabi Tel Aviv had played in England that degenerated into fan hooliganism. And there's none. They haven't played in England. Of course, they've played matches in England, but they haven't played in England that's where fans ended up fighting. So what the AI did was the AI probably, Maccabi Tel Aviv fans violence, and then found the top. Of the Premier League, the current Premier League clubs, the ones that have historically the most violent fans is West Ham. So the AI just decided to put 2 and 2 and came up with 5. That's, Maccabi Tel Aviv and West Ham fans must have fought before. That's basically what the AI did. It would have been interesting if Millwall was in the Premiership. So the bottom line of the long and short of all of this is AI is here to stay. Very useful tool. It makes work faster and more efficient, but you need to know what you are doing. You can't give, so for example, you can't give someone the kind of complex data set. So, for example, the data set on Nigerian food prices since 2016, and then just throw it at AI and say, analyze this. You need to be able to tell the AI what to do and guide it. And you need to have in-depth knowledge so that when the AI spits out the results, which is what AI does, it spits out results in seconds, you can look at it and know what is kosher and what is bullshit. Thank you for coming to my TED talk.
In the Watchmen series, there was a question from a character called Roman poet Juvenal. I think he was talking to a few policemen, and he asked them who watches the Watchmen. And that quote stayed with me because it was just quite powerful. There are people whose job it is either to protect or to watch, but then, or in this case, there are people whose job it is, and this is the police, to compile evidence, to compile a body of evidence, and to make a case for or against individuals. But it seems that they've done in doing that. Who watches them to make sure that there's no issue, and why on earth are they using AI? Because the problem isn't just that AI is hallucinating. Yes, it's hallucinating, but the problem is also that this seemed to have been an answer in search of a problem. So we want to ban the Maccabi Tel Aviv from coming to our city. We want to ban them because this is the heat of the whole Gaza Israel thing. There's a lot of local politics kicking off. So how do we make up a case or solidify our case to ensure that this decision that we have reached already can be solidified? Now, politics aside, because that's a whole different thing altogether. Politics aside, the question of, when I saw this story, I kept asking myself, wait, hang on. Since AI came out, how many cases have been made on the back of an AI research that can easily be pulled aside from the scene if someone looks hard enough? Because the problem is in a system where the police sadly hasn't been the most trusted, and the West Midlands police again has a history of people pulling apart their cases. The thing is, how then do you instill confidence in the police if something as common knowledge for football fans as a football match can be made up? So it's troubling to think, is there someone right now sitting with a police case because either someone has used AI or a police officer has just said, you know what, I'm not even going to forget AI, I'm just going to make up cases. And if there are cases, I mean, there's
coming from a culture where police routinely make up our own police back home don't even need AI to make
they
up
don't need
stuff.
AI. They just say, you know what, we saw this on you saw what on me, and they produce evidence.
one or two slaps and you'll agree the evidence.
But Cheta, when you look at current cases between 2017 and 2019, the Met Police had a black bank manager on their radar because someone saw him driving a nice car with a nice watch and suddenly put, again, as you say, 2 and 2 together to make 5 and said, this guy is running. He has a corruption ring going. He has gone crime and there's money laundering. Why? Because you're black, driving a nice car, wearing a nice watch, living in a nice neighborhood, so you must be a criminal. And this went on for 2 years.
Now you're bringing ended, us.
It ended with the guy getting a £1 million settlement, but not everybody ends up richer for police misconduct.
Yes. So that's the worry about how it can affect our own community generally. Because again, it brings us back to what I said earlier about the fact that AI is a tool. In the hands of any tool in the hands of the wrong person will end up being misused. So I mean, is this simple? I think I was about to mention which AI agents they use, but I realized that it doesn't help because all AI agents hallucinate at some point or the other.
Oh my goodness, I've had some crazy results.
But the key thing is, as you've brought up, the black community, not just in the UK, but in Western countries generally, has been subject to over-policing and profiling for a long time. So this case basically confirms deep-seated fears about institutional incompetence and possible misuse of technology.
And power.
It cuts and it cuts to the heart of that mistrust. It's actually terrifying. There's a fragile relationship with the police. I mean, in our second episode of this podcast, we talked about the disparities, the statistics in how often young black men are stopped by the police as compared to young white men. So when you have this historical stop and search bias already, and then you now find out that high-ranking officers are using AI tools to basically invent evidence
and then line about it in parliament,
and then line about it afterwards. Man, you have to ask that question: what happens when it's a criminal case involving one of us? I mean, I can't resist giving the example of cartel de Sol that the Americans invented for the Venezuelan president. Did they use AI to invent it?
Probably.
So if the police are too lazy to fact check simple stuff, then who are the people that will suffer the consequences? It's actually it's scary.
It's funny but not funny.
It's funny but not funny. It's actually very scary. It's very scary because I think where I would stop is to take us back. I don't know if you've watched the movie Elysium. So when when Matt Damon's character was being it was a robot judge. So he was accused by robots of breaking payroll.
Mm-hmm.
They basically broke his leg on the spot and put him in front of a judge, also a robot. And the judge said, "You have violated your parole." I was like, "No, I'm just late to work." And he was agitated because if he got late to work, he would lose his job. And
Yeah.
as someone who was a convict, losing his job, the stress of getting another one. So he was, "No, I'm late to work. I need to get to work." And the robot judge was like, "Your temperature is going up. You are showing signs of you're about to, I've forgotten the expression that it's used, but basically it just judged him based on vital signs. That's the kind of world we're entering. And it's in some will say that we've already entered. So I think a tip I'll give to all our people is when you're using your AI, whether it is Microsoft's Copilot or Google Gemini or ChatGPT, which is the
ChatGPT.
most popular one, or I don't use that for the record, but or whatever it is
Perplexity.
that I use, whether Perplexity, DeepSeek, Manus, Claude, whatever, please always say your please and your thank you, so that the day they take over, they will remember
No,
you and
no,
treat
this is
you nice.
so you know what? I would laugh about it, but I always say please and thank you. But then I also remember that worst case scenario when they start taking over, we'll just all of us will enter the plane and go to Nigeria. There's no light, so they won't be able to.
Yeah, now that you are being nasty there, you are being
There's no
nasty.
light, so they won't be able to go through the national grid and into our. No, we'll just unplug everything. Nobody will put on the gen. Last thing, Jetta, is it's quite interesting that this has happened. This has happened in West Midlands Police formation because the serious crime squad of the same West Midlands Police was disbanded in 1989 because they were notorious for cases of misconduct, fabricating evidence. So it's just the other thing I just ask myself is that is it a culture that is carrying on?
So some things are when something becomes cultural, it's very difficult to stop, no matter what reforms you put in place. So let me give an example. If you take a drive from Dakar to Ziguinchor in Senegal, you have to pass through Gambia. Gambia butts into Senegal. So you can't get from this Dakar region to Ziguinchor, and Ziguinchor is in the Casamance region. You can't get to Casamance from the rest of Senegal without passing through Gambia. Now, in Senegal proper, the police have their presence is visible, but they don't. It's visible but unobtrusive. In Gambia, the police are visible and they obstruct you. They stop you. They stop you. Sometimes they ask you for Roger, that kind of stuff. Why this difference
do
between...
you want to explain Roger?
No, I don't want to. Why this difference between the culture of police...
Cheta doesn't want to, but Roger is a bribe. But carry on.
Why do you have this difference in the culture of policing between Gambia and Senegal, who are neighbors side by side, and at one point were the same country? Because when both countries split, who did Gambia turn to train their police?
The UK.
It was the Nigerian police that trains the Gambian police. I think it's a good point to end.
Okay. You know what? No, sorry. Before we end, I wanted to say there was one. The interesting thing in this whole Maccabi Tel Aviv thing is that there was a lot of political pressure put not just on the police itself, but also on the government to investigate this, which is how the Home Office also got interested in asking the chief to resign. Now, I bring this up because whoever has Park's political pester power holds influence. And this is something we've said a lot on this podcast. As a community, we need to start thinking of that pester power. We need to speak up when there are issues that affect our communities, because we're saying, yeah, the police might have used AI to fabricate evidence, but if there's no pester power, if there's no one advocating on your behalf, if we're not speaking up, then something like this can happen and just go unnoticed because no one speaks up. So speak up is what I would say. Just
You
speak
said
up.
it all now. You said it all. We've said it so many times.
Thanks to
Harass
Cheta
your
for making
parliament, your
this.
MP.
Thanks to Cheta for making this the most chaotic episode yet.
Unjukwe.
Good night.